One group of dye mushrooms that I struggle to identify are Cortinarius. They make a range of color from orange to pink to red. But they're little brown mushrooms that, in my eyes, look like most other little brown mushrooms. Thankfully, my mom knows a simple test to help determine which mushrooms are the ones we dyers want. Something very old. Maybe a Cortinarius? I don't know.
Well, the gills don't look dark enough, as if they had the spores around it. They look like maybe they had been lighter and turned brown rather than turning brown from spores.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. I think these are two Cortinarius. This one, the gills are a nice chocolatey cocoa brown with the spores. Mm-hmm. And if when they were fresh, that quite possibly the gills would have been orange or dark orange or maybe even a red. Mm. And the color is very consistent with the Cortinarius or the subgroup Dermosidae. And this looks like it also could be a Cortinarius, a different variety, and it doesn't have the chocolatey spores, so it may be a different variety. But the only way we can tell for sure is when we get home, we'll break it up, put it into a glass jar, mm-hmm. and pour some boiling water over each one in separate jars. And if they're in the Dermosidae, which is a subgroup of the Cortinarius that have the dye pigments, the color will start to run immediately.
And that's how we can help identify them.
That's how at least we can go into we can identify it toward genus.
And we'll put a sample in there to make sure we get colored yarn.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect.
So we went to Salt Point this morning.
Yes.
And we found what we think are 3 different Cortinarius, but they're a little old and we're not sure. And so you said we could do a fun, easy experiment to help identify Cortinarius.
Yes. And that's because really to have a good dye mushroom, you have to have a pigment that's water soluble. Mm-hmm. And with the Cortinarius mushrooms, the pigments are extremely water soluble, whereas with the mushrooms that produce blue dyes, they're not. Mm. And that's the real why blue dyes are so hard to get. So Miriam discovered that probably the fastest way to see if a mushroom was in the Cortinarius group would be to pour boiling water over it. And so I have 2 jars of mushrooms that I have been positively identified as Cortinarius.
Okay.
And we're going to pour water over those. And ideally, we should break up the mushrooms a little bit first.
Okay.
You want to do that one?
Yeah, I'll do this one.
Just into little pieces so we have the most area broken up and exposed to the water. And then so we're going to add a little bit of water to each one of these. Okay, now these are the 2 dry ones that we know about.
I'll work on this one over here because there's a lot of little mushrooms, and then
okay.
You can work on the ones we collected today.
This is the one we collected today, which is, I'm pretty sure it's a Cortinarius. It has the right color, cap. It has the gills that are a dark cinnamon brown with the spores. And I'm making a guesstimate that this also is a Cortinarius, but this is the best way to find out. So I'm going to break it up into little pieces. Put it in here, caps and stems. And then the second one that we found that we think is a Cortinarius is this beautiful little golden ochre mushroom with an extremely long stem.
Yeah.
And the gills look like they probably were yellow to start with. And I have seen Cortinarius like this, but this may be the test that we need to do to determine whether it is in that group.
And then I found this little one, which you don't think is a dye, is a Cortinarius, but it kind of, I thought it looked like one just because this top looked
Right.
brownish.
Yeah,
And
you're
the
gonna,
bottom looked maybe like it had dye, but you said,
it's really hard to tell if there's a dye mushroom by the color of
gills.
the cap or the gills. Just like that one red mushroom we found today that was all red on the top,
Yeah.
but it had white gills and a white stem, and it doesn't make any dye.
So my method of looking at the gills
Is the most important one. So anyway, this is sort of a rough and ready way to do it. I'm just going to pour some boiling water over each of these.
Okay. Oh.
Oh, look at that.
All right, that's a good one.
These are definitely Cortinarius.
Yep.
Okay, here are our new ones.
Yep. Oh.
Oh, yes.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Okay, and then this is the one that
This is the
we're really not
unknown.
sure about.
We don't know what it is.
Oh. Maybe not.
Time will tell.
Maybe not.
But the interesting thing with the Cortinarius, especially the ones that produce the red dyes, is they may have a number of 4 or 5 different pigments in them.
Okay.
And they have to have a specific pigment to go to the full red. Otherwise, they go in various shades of orange and whatever. Okay, so what I want to do is put in a little sample of yarn. This has been pre-mordanted. It's wool yarn pre-mordanted with alum.
Okay.
And I forgot to bring anything to stir with.
That's all right.
I'm going to put it in there to soak.
So you can pour the water in, and then you can put the little yarn sample in just right away. You don't have to wait, or
No.
do you think it matters? Okay. Because really, this is just, it's not like you're going to be dyeing yarn.
No, this is just a real easy way of testing the mushrooms. But this one was, yes, that was so exciting. And I think, well, it'll depend on the color of the mushroom, but I think I know what it might be because of the shape of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was, it looked like it was hygrophanous. And how do you explain hygrophanous?
Are we short one sample? Or do you have 2 in there?
Let's break this one in half.
Oh, nicely done, Mom.
Because see, there's some color coming on here
Yeah,
too.
there's a little yellow.
Yeah.
And this is just...
So
yeah.
These 2 mushrooms are in the subgroup of Cortinarius that are called dermosobi. And that's because they have the pigments that produce the dye. And we used to call them dermosobi as a general group, and in Miriam's books, they're all called dermosobes. And then the powers that be, who with their DNA have reclassified them back to their original naming of Cortinarius. So it's like, I don't write anything in ink anymore.
No,
it's always in pencil because it's bound to be changed.
So how long do we wait, or do we know right away? How patient do we need to be?
We know right away that 1, 2, 3 are Cortinarius in the dermosobi group.
Okay.
But we don't know, but see, there's color starting to form in these too.
Yeah.
So it's quite possible they would be dye mushrooms, and they just take longer to have the color develop.
Okay, so we can let it sit for a little while, and then we can come and then pull the little strings out and
let's put the caps on the mushroom on the jars. They're right over here, to keep these as warm as possible. Oh, that is so exciting!
Oh, let me get the other one.
And I always use canning jars because they're less likely to react to when you pour boiling water into them.
Yeah, you don't want your glass jar to shatter.
Exactly, exactly. And I just guess we don't have a lid for that
We
one.
don't, but
That's all right.
that's all right. I'll cover it with something else.
Okay.
All right, so we'll come back and check then. Mom, that's so exciting. We found an...
We found, yes, you found the mushroom.
Yeah.
But it looks very much like what I think is Cortinarius californicus,
Okay.
which is very difficult to identify. The mycologists are still arguing about it, and the one difference it has is I don't know how to describe the quality of the color of the cap, or it's not color of the cap so much, it's anyway, it's called hydrophanous.
Okay.
Yeah, the cap can be wet and it absorbs the color it absorbs the rain differently than this. But I think
Oh yeah.
so anyway, that is can you find me a chopstick or something that we can pull
Yeah.
the yarn out just to take a look at them?
Yeah, okay.
I am so excited. The Cortinarius smithii.
Should we wait and do it in a little bit, Mom?
Oh, let's wait and just see. It's only been, what, about 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, that's beautiful within 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, let's wait a little longer, Mom, and then see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ideally, I would have a different stirrer for each one so I don't,
Contaminate.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's really pretty.
And that was a single mushroom growing under a pine tree with huckleberry right next to it, right?
Yeah, that was my big lesson today. Of what I learned is the other plants to look for. Because I was always just look for like pine trees, but
No.
now I know you need.
Yeah, the Cortinarius in particular form this mycelium relationship with the trees and with the plants, and each gives back and forth to the other to help them to survive. And that's why it's impossible, as so far as we know, to grow these independently in a lab, because they need the interrelationship with the trees or the other plants, because they're passing sugars back and forth, and it's a whole wonderful, mysterious relationship that's
Ecosystem.
going on. Yes. So let's see what this one.
You can't wait, can you? Oh, very pretty.
So, to judge by the color at this point, I would say this one is not going to be a a smithii,
Yeah.
which used to be called Western red dye, or a semi-sanguineous.
Okay. So you can rule those two out.
Yeah, because the color is not as intense.
Yeah.
Now, it could be also that these were dried specimens that we had. And so in an ideal situation, if you wanted to be really very careful and scientific about it, you would weigh
Yes.
your sample so that you were working with exactly the same
Yeah.
ratio. But here we have a fresh one versus two dried.
So this may have been a higher ratio of mushroom to fiber than this one, and
Right,
that could
and
change the
therefore
color.
more pigment in it.
Yeah.
But still, in the finished procedure, they're going to be what they're going to be, depending on which of the 5 or 6 pigments they had in them, the chemical pigments in them. But look at the color that's happening with that.
Well, it hasn't gone into the yarn yet, Mom.
But look at the color that's in the water versus the color that's in here.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So ultimately, we would wait an hour or overnight or whatever, but we'll leave these here, and
Yeah, we'll check on them in an hour.
I would say that our experiment worked.
Yeah.
And you found the new mushroom. Thank you, Myra.
Thanks, Mom.
You made my day.